Hi everyone, welcome back to Exploration Nation. In today's episode, I'll be interviewing world-renowned shark behaviorist, diving instructor, conservationist, and educator Cristina Zenato, also known as Mother of Sharks. She's been featured everywhere from Discovery Channel's Shark Week with William Shatner to Will Smith's Bucket List on a mission to educate millions about diving, shark behavior, and environmental conservation. If you love exploration, conservation, entrepreneurialism, and journalism as a whole, make sure to like and subscribe to this channel because there will be a lot of awesome content to come. My name is Chelsea, student journalist, Army veteran, and aspiring explorer. Let's get started. Hi, Christina. Welcome to Exploration Nation. Thank you so much for being here today. First and foremost, I want to thank you for taking the time to support my journey as a college journalism student. What you do for sharks and conservation is incredibly inspiring, and I'm truly honored to have you as my very first interview. So, for those who are learning about you for the first time in today's video, can you tell us a little more about your work and what a day in the life looks like for you?
Hi, Chelsea, and thank you for having me. It's an honor to be your first guest. From a title point of view, a generalized title, you could say I'm a scuba diving professional. So that's how I make a living. I have two passions with obviously the background and love for education. But when I became involved into sharks and caves, and we'll go into depth during our conversation about that, I realized that not many people really shared the same passion and interest for the two of them. Mm-hmm. So with time, what I became is involved into not only the professional side of being with sharks or diving in caves, but into the scientific part, the understanding educational part, and then the consequence, the conservation part. It's been about 29 years in the making. So if you were to go through all my titles, I have all sorts of course director, advanced cave diving instructor, tech rebreather instructor, all those titles. But if I were to summarize my work, it's exploration, education, and conservation. I think we need to explore what we know and sometimes question it. Then we educate ourselves so we can educate others. And then once we have explored it and we understand it, that is when we can promote conservation. And that's how I put together my professional life, my passion, my life and my work, which are one and the same.
So would you say that oceanic environments and shark behavior have always been passions of yours?
Oceanic environments, for sure. I'm a water baby. I come from an ocean family that took me to the ocean. And so I always had a passion for the ocean, for the water. It's not only the ocean. That's the thing. Lakes, rivers, ocean, anything that had to do with water. Sharks was a child dream of having sharks as friends. So it's like veiled passion for sharks, almost to a mythical level, almost like having a dinosaur. So I want to have a Tyrannosaurus Rex in my backyard. The realization that not everybody shared my love for sharks the way I do came by becoming professionally involved. So that was not something that I realized as a child. It was like, well, my family loved the oceans. We all love the oceans, and there's cool sharks in the ocean. And that's how I was brought up. And then the reality was just like, well, no, most people don't think that about sharks.
Right.
Came like, well, what do I do to make people change their minds and turn into my childhood me?
So at what point in your life did you realize that the work that you do now was going to be your life's work?
Wow, that's a very interesting question. I don't think I ever had that. I would say maybe halfway. We're 30 years into it. I knew for sure what I didn't want to do or what I didn't want to go back to or become, but I didn't realize that I would put in my lifetime. And then 10 years, I think 9, 10 years, it started evolving into, well, this is it. This is actually, I really love this. I haven't exhausted the desire of doing this. Actually, the longer I went, the more my passion grew.
It's safe to say that you're going to stay in the Bahamas long term. Are you absolutely in love with it there? Do you call that home?
I call the Bahamas home. I've been calling the Bahamas home for a very long time. I've been here 30 years. I think this is going to stay home and this is going to stay base.
And for those who have not seen your amazing videos, what are different ways that you help sharks through your work? And can you describe what it feels like being hands-on with these wild animals?
So being hands-on with these wild animals for me is like being home with my pups. I am absolutely happy when I'm on the water with them. I feel very comfortable. I trust them as animals. They're very understandable, very easy to reach. So I'm happy. Mm-hmm. The work that I do is multifaceted. So there's a direct work where I show these different aspects of sharks, and I tell people that come with me what to look for and what sharks do. Then there's a part where we bring up together with my husband, Kevin, images of my work with sharks. So there's a direct approach. Then we surface and we have the images, and thank goodness we are now in the time of social media and distributions and pictures and videos and reels. So there's a way to expand this outreach. But I think one of the biggest one that I've been very, very involved with is very much the educational part. And the educational part of the people that cannot come in the water with me, or sometimes don't even reach to all these videos or documentaries or even our talk. And there's more the little blurbs that I do about mind your language. Let's talk about sharks. There's over 500 species of them. And that goes both as independent. So I do my own talks and presentations. And then I do a lot of outreach programs towards the schools, university, clubs of all different levels, age, and obviously societal background. And I think that is my biggest contribution, the way I can reach the biggest audience.
And so sharks, I recently learned, are a keystone species. Could you explain for those who don't know what a keystone species is and why they're so important for the environments that they live in?
Okay, so keystone species, in a very, very small nutshell, I hope no marine biologist is gonna, is basically fundamental on many levels. And we need to go, if you look at sharks, one of the sometimes the mistakes that we make, we say, oh, they're apex predators. It's like not necessarily. They can be apex predators, they're mesopredators, but their presence has roles no matter what species at what level they cover into any environment. One, they are specifically, if you want to call them, cleaners. So sharks are designed to come in to eliminate the sick, the dying, the dead, and avoid the spread of, for example, diseases or the spread of some issues amongst that certain animals. The other one that is fundamental, that sometimes we forget about sharks, is redistribution of their prey. And that has consequences that are as large as a web, as a spider web. It's not just a center, they do one thing and there's a direct consequences. What we don't realize, it just spreads like a spider web. I think when I talk about this, the best example I use for people to relate to is the wolves in a Yellowstone. It's not that they just control the deers, but by controlling where the deers go and eat and where they graze, they manage also what kind of underbrush remains by the river or by the trees. And where the wolves are active and the deers are not grazing, then the underbrush stays, which then allows, for example, fish to lay eggs by the river, which before they couldn't. And so it's like, how did the wolf save the fish in a Yellowstone park? And it's just like, how are those two related? And that is a keystone. It's just they really are at the center of this giant web.
And they keep everything in balance. Do you think that they have anything to do with the health of the ocean, especially when considering coral reefs?
Yes, very much. That is another big subject. Coral reefs are being affected not only by the lack of, but by the presence of. And the presence of increased pollutants, for example, could be increased traffic, increased acidifications caused by CO2 emissions. So we're looking into something bigger just from the ocean. But the sharks themselves are very important for the health of the ecosystem that they are part of. From a health point of view of the ocean, there's so many factors that we need to evaluate. It will be a long conversation, but let's think about the sharks have been here 450 million years. They're older than trees and have survived all 5 mass extinctions. And thinking that they might not play a vital role into what is the ocean web and the balance of the oceans and this planet, I think will be absolutely irresponsible.
Over the years, have you personally seen a decline in shark, coral reef, or other marine populations from the time that you first started diving?
Yes, I have, and no, I haven't. So I've seen the decline of the corals, specific species completely wiped out, and then I've seen some of them coming back. When I started
Right.
30 years ago, we are at the end of a pandemic that killed all the long spine sea urchins. We're now back into having a revitalized population of long spine, being cleaner from the algae. However, I just heard there's another pandemic starting now on the long spine sea urchin. So some stuff already seen fluctuating through death, disappearance, and coming back. Sharks, luckily, they've been more or less constant and at the same level. But also, the Bahamas have been protecting sharks since 2011.
Mm-hmm.
The corals, I think, are the ones that have taken the biggest beating that I've seen in the last 30 years. And that has not improved. It has constantly declined. So complete colonies, coral head that was most likely to disappear in less than 3 weeks. Staghorn coral, elkhorn coral, star coral, Montastrea cavernosa, those are the ones that I just completely watched disappearing off. And then fish has been very much that one on a wave as well. I remember when I started diving, there was a specific species of fish that I saw on every dive. And then for decades, they were gone. Then we had an explosion of lionfish, and then the lionfish kind of like balance itself out. So definitely there are changes. The changes, though, are 30 years in changes like that I'm able to notice on just by being down there and taking notes. That is fast.
Mm-hmm.
I think 30 years is a long time. It's fast on an evolutionary point of view. So I can't say why, where, when, but it's just very much drastic changes in 30 years. Those should be of some concern.
And what would you say are some of the biggest threats that you're aware of to sharks, ocean health, and what can the everyday person do to help these causes?
I think the biggest threat is the traditional out of sight, out of mind. Whatever is sharks, whatever is corals, oceans in general. We kind of like imagine the ocean, this giant carpet where you can push everything under, cover the carpet, and you don't see the dust. So for years, unfortunately, the oceans have also been the receptacle of, oh, what do we do with this nuclear waste? And it's like, yeah, put it in the ocean. It's going to be out of sight, out of mind. So I think that is the biggest issue. So how do we solve that issue? Is, in my opinion, is education. Balanced education, making people really understand how intrinsically our lives are connected to the ocean, no matter where we live. I can live in Utah and still have my life dependent on the ocean. And I think this is what we need to do. We need to create connection. And we create that connection through education and explaining the interconnectivity also between all these things. Or when I throw a piece of plastic on the ground, where does it go? Well, it goes in the bush. Yeah, but then the bush grows over it, and then it breaks it down in small little pieces, and then all this chemical leached out. Where do they go? Well, when it rains, it goes through the terrain that goes inside the cave. Okay, what's the big deal? Well, that's a fresh water supply for these islands, which then flows all the way to the ocean into an ocean blue holes, which affect the mangroves, where you have the fish and the baby corals and the baby sharks. Do you see where I'm going with this?
Yeah,
So I think is really make people understand it's an umbilical cord, and you can disconnect it. So education. We need to address also how we speak about them. I think it's time we move away from this, oh, it's Jaws' fault. I'm so sorry, but I do believe that at this point, someone needs to take responsibility for giving fault to a 47-year-old work of fiction. We need to walk away from this mindless killer monster machines, Jaws, lurking, patrolling, attack, vicious, all these words that we use. Every time there's an animal in the water that is, oh, where they live. and bring them back down to a normal level. Listen, we've done that with polar bears. Polar bear is a carnivorous hunter. It's a dangerous carnivorous hunter. I hear people talking about the dangers of polar bears, but we've been able to have people understand the demise of polar bears, the melting of the ice caps, and the fact that we need to do something to save them and protect them, regardless of what their role is in nature. Do the same for sharks.
I agree 100%. So I talked with you previously about one of my interactions with sharks during wet silk training in the ocean. One person became injured in the water and was bleeding badly. My interaction was a negative one because we were circled by a large shark and it tried to bite, I'm assuming out of curiosity, as we were being pulled into the boat. So for years, I had thought that this response from the shark was solely because of the scent of human blood in the water. However, after talking to you about my experience and goals of overcoming my fear of sharks, through getting in the water with them and taking your shark behavior course one day, you educated me that sharks being drawn to the scent of human blood is a myth. And I feel like this is one of the most common misperceptions when it comes to sharks. Could you elaborate more on what sharks are attracted to in regard to scent and prey and the kind of blood that they're drawn to?
Well, so the first thing that we need to go back to is exactly that. Sharks, which species? Mm-hmm. Because we can't just have one size fit all answer. Because if you say, well, if I was bleeding around nurse sharks, chances are the nurse sharks would have not even come close. But if you're bleeding around the different kind of sharks, what causes sharks one trigger? And so depending on the species, could have been behavior, could have been erratic splashing, could have been that the person that was bleeding obviously was sending out also vibrations like heartbeats that were not as regular, sending out a sense of weakness. There was a lot of commotion in the water. So all of that, depending on where you were, might have attracted those kind of pelagic species, for example, that as soon as something blinks, moves, they'll go, oh, I need to investigate that. So it was not the blood in itself of all that injury and all that commotion and all that movement in an area where maybe there are sharks that are not used to all that movement, simply trigger you need to go and check that one out. You do not know if that's an opportunity or not. And that was, we forget, is not they're out there, attracted by us just because we're swimming. There is something at a certain point that triggered their interest, and nature says, you need to go and check this one out. And so with the bleeding I was talking about, it could have been also the weakened system of the person that was injured.
So how should people act around a shark if they encounter them in the water? And what are people's most common mistakes when it comes to interacting with sharks?
Primarily is, I think we need to stop reacting like they show them screaming and panicking and running and thrashing. But it's more in case we're not capable of recognizing the shark, if we're capable of seeing a shark. So most of the time, people are in the water with sharks and don't even see them. The sharks will investigate them and then move away, realizing it's not anything of their interest. But if somebody were to see a shark, independently if they're on the surface or on the water, is keep an eye on the animal. Move towards the animal. Say, hey, I see you. And slowly and carefully leave the water in the most appropriate manner. If you're by the shoreline, slowly make your way towards the shore. If there's a boat, signal the boat to come and pick you up. If you're on scuba diving and you feel uncomfortable, which I don't see, but if that should happen, find somewhere where you can maybe have parts of your body, behind, in front of a coral head, and look at the sharks in front of you. But like any animal, if you make an eye contact and you say, hey, hi, I'm here as well, and you're fine, chances are the animal will just investigate and then leave the area.
So would you say slow movement, eye contact are good behaviors when it comes to interacting with sharks versus swimming away and splashing as fast as you can?
Yeah. I would say a bit of slow movement, eye contact. Think about how do you react if a dog comes out of a fenced yard and starts barking towards you? You're going to run? or you're actually going to hold your ground and slowly and carefully move out of what this dog perceives being his or her territory. To me, you don't run, you don't scream, you just stand your ground and slowly either move out of their area, like with sharks, or hopefully they'll move out of the area. But yes, nice and calm and relax and keep an eye on the animal.
I feel like before I started learning about sharks, if I would have, not had watched your episodes and your content, my first interaction would have been to swim away as fast as I could, but you can't outswim a shark. So I think that's important for a lot of people.
You can't outswim a snapper.
Yep. Well, everyone, that concludes today's episode of Exploration Nation. Cristina, I can't thank you enough for being here today. It means so much to me. So truly, thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to share your knowledge about sharks and conservation today. For those who are watching, if you have not liked and subscribed to Exploration Nation, please do so because there will be a lot of awesome content to come throughout the year. As an entrepreneur and current journalism student, I have guests lined up this year from people who work in the space, aviation, and movie industries. I will also be bringing on some wildlife conservation experts, world-renowned explorers, and more. Please keep in mind that I do work very long hours between my college and other side projects, so exams, work deadlines, and my overall GPA do have to come first, but I will be posting as frequently as I can without rushing the editing process. Overall, I really want to make sure that I put 100% into every single one of these episodes so that they can grow and I can grow over time. Because that's why I really started Exploration Nation, to talk about the things that are really important and exciting while practicing the media side of journalism. So as long as you're subscribed, you should be getting these notifications when new videos are posted. If you have not explored Cristina Zenato's website, LinkedIn account, or her Instagram, please do so by searching her name. Also, make sure to stay tuned for my next upcoming episode where I will be bringing on an amazing guest who's a combat veteran, former White House employee, and medical expert who plays a significant role in making this world a better place through his work. As someone who formerly served in the Army myself, I think it's very important to also support the military and veterans community through my work, especially for those who are going out there and dedicating their lives to making true differences in this world. And in some way, that's what all of my guests are about on this channel. Whether they're going out there and chasing their dreams and have become successful in them, they're inspiring people to aim high and to pursue their passions just by doing what they do. For those who come on to share messages about conservation, exploration, or entrepreneurialism, they're taking time out of their schedules to provide free education that can improve the lives of viewers, but can also lead to this world becoming a better place if enough of us stand together and start taking action. So I really appreciate all of you for taking the time to watch this episode. I hope you enjoy the short clip that Cristina was kind enough to share for the episode. This is my favorite footage of hers called Double the Love, because you can see that not only are these sharks comfortable around her, but they truly trust her because they seek physical touch, much like dogs do with humans that they trust. All right, you guys, until next time, this is Chelsea with Exploration Nation.